everyone, Justin here with MyManJustin's Collectible Emporium, and I'm your man for Pokemon cards, card analysis, and other types of collectible media. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, other types of media I collect in my Emporium. So first, I'm going to talk about vintage and rare books is one of the types of media forms that I like to collect. And I'm just going to show a couple of these first. So here we have this book, The Psychology of Music. Now this book I haven't read all the way. It's a really deep book, and he basically goes into the different ways that specific types of music and specific keys and frequencies has on our psychology. And there's like predictive ways that certain patterns and keys have on our psychology, the way we feel and think. And he wrote a whole book on that. So it's really deep stuff. The guy's genius. This next book is by Moses Maimonides, and it's called The Guide for the Perplexed. And this book goes into some really deep metaphysical concepts. Some of the chapters are called The Existence of Purely Spiritual Beings, The 5 Theories Concerning Providence. It gets into biblical analysis, Job and his friends' discussion, the various theories concerning providence. So basically it just goes into very specific philosophical analysis of mostly, almost exclusively, the Old Testament of biblical media. So that's that book. This next one is called The Tragic Sense of Life by Miguel de Unamuno. And he is a Spanish philosopher. He was actually a Christian existentialist. And his works are very much influenced by Swedenborgian philosophy, for example. And he basically also gets into other ideas of metaphysics, some chapters called The Hunger of Immortality, the rationalist discussion and dissection. So he basically mixes physics, theology, and philosophy into one work, which is really interesting. And the overall arcing theme is that life is, in a sense, tragic and is filled with suffering, and is interested in the way that people confront that suffering and find a way to move forward in it. And that is very similar to the idea of the hero's journey, and which brings me to my next book, Maps of Meaning by Dr. Jordan Peterson. And this book is actually a textbook. So this is the kind of book that would be shown or used in a university classroom setting. And this book influenced me a lot because it basically goes into mythological stories throughout history and kind of makes the claim that the mythological narrative structure to view life itself is the superior way to view life. And he's also, this is where I got a lot of my insight on the idea of the hero's journey, which I've talked about that in terms of the Pokemon series and Ash himself as the archetypal hero. So this is just a really great book. There's a ton of research gone into it, and he just basically maps out all of the ideas in life, chaos and order within these mythological stories, and basically states, which is influenced by Jung, that we have this kind of universal subconscious that makes it so we all have an affinity toward these stories. We know these stories, they touch something really deep in us, and when we hear them, we can connect to them, and when we connect to them, we can integrate them into our psyche and better navigate life itself. So this next one is called The Lesser Key of Solomon. And this book, this is how I got some of my ideas with my philosophy and metaphysics of Pokemon. So I've talked about how Pokemon themselves are basically spheres of influence in life which can be contended with and eventually mastered. And that's actually what this book is kind of about, is they conceptualize these frames or these spheres of influence in life and gave them an embodied form, and they called that a spirit. And each embodied form, they gave a name and then they gave a sphere of influence in which it represented. Some of these spirits would be representing of things like geometry and mathematics, and this one is has a connection with the sciences and poetry. So basically the same idea with Pokemon. Like for example with Terrakion, Terrakion is the cavern Pokemon. So it's a sphere of influence in life in which represents caverns. And what do caverns represent? They represent dark, unexplored places. And for a person on the narrative archetypal hero's journey, they have to explore and be adventurous to find out and explore unexplored places to have more insight into the world and understanding so that they can continue on the journey. So that's kind of where I got those ideas. Here, this book is Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, and this was a really nice edition of this book because it actually includes artistic drawings in the book, which is really cool. Who doesn't like a book with pictures in it, right? And it's a really interesting type of artwork on top of that. So Dostoevsky was a Russian literary figure, also a type of Christian existentialist. So he was also concerned with how to behave, except he was more concerned with morality, especially as a morality that exists and a structure of morality that exists apart from individual perception. So it's something that has to be kind of, and this is the idea of the logos. So to seek the logos, you have to continuously seek it to find out more about it and better be able to integrate yourself on that path to be more in tune with the logos. And that's kind of what he was about, this idea of morality, because the book is about a guy that basically commits the perfect murder and still has to deal with the implications on his psyche, especially. Like, he doesn't actually get away with it, even though it was the perfect murder with the perfect person. This last one is The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. And William James is a pragmatic philosopher, so this is where I got a lot of my ideas of pragmatism. He basically goes through, and this book I really got into deep. You can see I have writing all inside of it. Some of the chapters in this book, the divided self and the process of its unification, conversion. So he's basically, it's kind of like a case study into the different ways that people gain insight into metaphysical or transcendent reality. And there's a book on saintliness. So it's basically, that's about the behaviors that come alongside with a conceptualization of transcendence. So those are just some of the books that I like to collect. I like books on philosophy, metaphysics, and theology, and things like that. This last book that I'm going to show you is called A Theory of Natural Philosophy by Roger Joseph Boscovich, and it's by a publisher that I really like. They have great books, a lot of rare vintage books. It's called Forgotten Books, so they really live up to that name. They republish books that are kind of lost to the ages, and it's really cool with this one because what they do is this book was originally written in Latin. So on each page, the left side of the page has the Latin, and then the right side has the English translation of how they translated it. So if you know Latin, you can try to get your own translation out of it, which I don't know Latin, but I would like to learn some Latin eventually. So that's it for books, and I haven't read that book fully yet. I've gotten a little bit into it, and it's pretty heavy. So next, I'll get into digital video forms of media. So here we have this Legend of Zelda. There was a series, a Legend of Zelda series a long time ago, and it didn't do well at all. It didn't get good response, but it's still, to me, it's a kind of a piece of history. And the Legend of Zelda franchise was what really got me into playing video games, especially adventure and role-playing style video games. So to me, it's just a nice collectible. I don't really watch the actual shows. I have watched a few of them, but they're pretty bad. They're pretty low quality productions, but nonetheless, it's cool just to have that. It has the whole series, and like I said, I started playing Ocarina of Time, and that got me into gaming, and I really enjoy gaming, especially role-playing adventure gaming. Now I'm much more into things like the Elder Scrolls. That's my favorite game series, but the Legend of Zelda always has a special place. Here we have this Studio Ghibli collection of Miyazaki's works, and Miyazaki is one of my favorite animator. He makes really great pieces of art. He definitely does a good job of giving insight into specific aspects of life, like nature and war, and metaphysical, philosophical concepts as well. He is famous for the movies Spirited Away, or Howl's Moving Castle, or Princess Mononoke, or Kiki's Delivery Service. But he also has some other great movies that I would highly suggest watching. And so this collection here has a whole collection of all the movies in one piece. So I really like that. It's just kind of another piece of collectible media in itself. I also like to collect rare interactive media too. So here is the 2-game bonus disc for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and the Ocarina of Time Master Quest. And this was really cool because this was given out to people and sent in the mail to people that had pre-ordered the Wind Waker. And the Wind Waker was the upcoming game at that time. And they released this like it was like a month or a month and a half before the Wind Waker released. So we had a new game to play while we were waiting. And what they did with the Master Quest is they remastered all of the dungeons in Ocarina of Time. So it really did a good job of giving a feel like a new game, because the dungeons were drastically different. The overarching story and everything and all the side quests were still the same, but the bulk of the game is dungeons, of course. So really great addition from Nintendo that really hooked up all the fans. So this in itself is another piece of history and nostalgia. So I like to have this as a piece of my collection, my media collection as well. And similar to that, another rare game, interactive media, is this promotional disc. And I think this was actually also given out for people that pre-ordered the Wind Waker, because this actually includes a demo of the Wind Waker alongside the four other platform Zelda games up until that time, including Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, and Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. So this was cool because it's just a piece that compiles all of the platform games and allows you to play them all on one platform, being the GameCube. So again, another kind of historical piece, brings back a lot of memories and nostalgia, and was a big part of my delving into video games. So there it is. This is just an example of other different types and forms of media that I like to collect, whether it's interactive digital media like video games, like rare video games that are promotional, or special collection releases of movies or shows. They all have kind of a specific impact on my life or my thinking, and that's how I like to collect. They all have some kind of meaningful place in my life and in the way that I've come to understand things and think. So that's just an example of some of my other types of collectible media. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you want to reply in the comments about some of the types of media that you collect, I'm always interested in hearing about different types of media that people collect, to explore them for myself as well, whether it's books or games or movies, feel free to comment it. And if you also know of any of the media that I just shared in this video, feel free to comment about that as well, and let me know what you thought about it, or how it affected you, or how you enjoyed it, or anything like that. So again, hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next broadcast. Thanks.